Well, listen, everybody, good to see you, although I can barely see you from up here. Listen, I have the opportunity to introduce another session here brought to you specifically from MMA, so I don't know how many of you saw me speak earlier this morning to open up the event, but I mentioned about work that MMA has been doing with a team of professors under a company called MapCaps. They've now formed. One of the professors is here with us today, about some work around marketing org, about our ability to actually identify what changes in the org can produce sales, what changes in the org can detract from sales. And it's not the things you think, and I don't want to take too much away from Neil and company here that sort of walk you through some of this, but I believe that this is the most important work I may get to be involved with in my entire career. I think it's that significant, because it really does help us to understand how to orient an org, not just for financial performance, but also for marketing department satisfaction. And as you mentioned earlier this morning, that's at an all-time low. So I'm going to turn it over to them. They're going to walk you through some of the work that they've been doing in conjunction with the Global Board. We've been on a 6 or 7 year mission with them to help create this thinking, the frameworks, and then ultimately a measurement tool within that. So without further ado, I will then introduce Dr. Neil Morgan, who's a professor of marketing, Welch Family Professor in Business at Wisconsin School of Business, University of Wisconsin, and Nicole Vinson. I think I get to introduce Nicole. I hope I did this right, Neil. Nicole Vinson, who's a vice president at Global Digital Media and Omni-Shopper Experience at Kellanova, who was involved in the study and work that they've done. So give a big warm welcome to Neil and Nicole. Thank you, everyone.
So I'm not Nicole. Nicole is back there, and I'm going to show you some stuff, and then we're going to get Nicole out to talk about how you might use it in practice. So I'm going to talk about designing marketing organizations, not just to try and improve top-line growth, but also in ways that will improve the health of the organization. And we use kind of marketer NPS, so the marketing team satisfaction, as a way of getting at that as an indicator of operating effectiveness. So let me get into the little bit of the weeds, and then I'll kind of show you the evidence. When I say marketing org, most of you immediately start thinking about boxes and arrows. Who reports to who? Org templates, org charts, those kinds of things. And those things have a place, and the place is in a PowerPoint deck and not actually in use. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. I want you to open the aperture some in terms of thinking about marketing organization to a much bigger construct. So I want to talk about marketing organization as simply how marketing work gets done. Right? The stuff that you have to get done in a calendar year, how does that happen? You got people, you've got systems, you've got data they've got to use, you've got processes, you've got templates that they have to fill in. You've got decision rights, you've got workflows between different teams. Some of those teams may be a part of your organization, some of them may be ecosystem partners, but somehow all of these things have to come together in order to enable the work that you need to get done. And it's hugely important, because knowing what you should be doing or having a plan is one thing. What you actually make happen in a marketplace is what does or doesn't move a needle. So this is literally one of the most important things that can happen in any organization structure, is your ability to get stuff done. And marketing org is how we think about getting stuff done. The amount, compared to what you expected to do in the time frame, with the budgets, and not just with budgets, but also with the kind of the stress and the cost and the time aspect of that goes along with it. So it's that important, probably nothing more important in your entire organization. And yet across industries, most leaders exhibit huge levels of dissatisfaction with their marketing org. The last data point that we collected, 80% of CMOs were dissatisfied with their marketing org. And that gets reflected in the employees and not just in the leaders of the org. Right? Greg shared the NPS number for the industry as a whole, and this is based on thousands of survey responses, and it's a -2 for an industry as a whole. So you've got leaders who are desperately unhappy with their marketing org. Let's not talk about CEOs, that's just the CMOs. And you've got the people who work in the marketing organization who are clearly not happy either. So then you ask the dumb question. Why is it so hard to get right? And I'll talk about, I'll just call this Exhibit A. Right? So you think about kind of what I just showed you in terms of what has to happen for marketing work to get done at the quality you need, at the cost levels you need, in the time frames that you need. All of the things that have to come together to enable that to happen. You got to have people with the right skills, in the right teams, with workflows that fit together, and having the budgets available when you need them. And I could get to 13, 14, 15 variables really, really quickly. And if that sounds complicated, that's because it is. And then it gets worse, because each of these things interacts with one another. And not just in a bivariate sense, but all of them. So you have to try and design this very complicated constellation of things such that things fit together, that there are some synergistic elements to it, and not just that they don't fight, although lots of them do fight a lot of the time. So it's hugely important and really, really hard to get right. So what does good look like? Are there examples of good that we can find? And so we've been on a study mission, as Greg suggested, for the last 6 or 7 years, coming up on 7 years now, trying to figure out an answer to this question. Are there some things that enable organizations to get their marketing work done better than others in ways that contribute to both the top line and to marketer NPS in an organization? And this is a little bit of an eye chart, but I'm going to hover on it for kind of a minute. And this is the culmination of a number of studies that we've done over 7 years. And we've identified a number of firms that we call WMOs, winning marketing organizations. We're a bunch of professors, we have pointy heads, we scratch our chins a lot, we like running econometric models with panel data sets over multiple time periods, and controlling for everything we can control for. That's kind of what we do for a living. And so from a science perspective, controlling for all the usual suspects of things that would predict sales growth over time, we've been able to isolate some characteristics of organizations which give you a very high probability of being able to be one of these winning marketing organizations. And what I want to point to first are a few of the things that actually don't matter very much. Organization structure. I came out here and I showed you a slide and I said, what's marketing org? And you immediately all thought about org structure. Right? It's like a knee-jerk response. And it's a knee-jerk response for CMOs as well. Because in lots of ways, it is the lever that is the easiest and the most controllable for them to go after. It turns out it matters how you design your org, but you can design your org in lots of different ways and still get a good result. Right? This is not about should I be organizing around product or should I be organizing around segment, should I be organizing around geography. Those things don't move the needle. Right? It's also not about decision centralization. It's not about what takes place at the center versus what takes, do we devolve things to the product groups, or do we devolve things to the brand groups, or even do we devolve things to the country? That centralization, decentralization appears not to matter that much. Right? Insourcing and outsourcing the same. Agile is just the cost of doing business. Doesn't differentiate between winners and losers from a winning marketing org perspective. Now, I'm not going to tell you that psychological safety is not important, because it is. But that's not new news. Right? We've kind of known that for a long time. The evidence has been out there. But there are 3 things that clearly stand out as being predictive of whether or not your marketing org is likely to be part of a winning marketing org. And I'll start on the first one, on the second line, which is shared mission and methods. So does your marketing organization have a clear mission of what it does and what it does not do in the organization that specifies how it uniquely contributes to value in that firm? And a whole bunch of things go along with that, and I'll walk you through them in a second. The second big thing is operating clarity. I would argue that most of our marketing organizations actually have and Greg talked about this as an affliction. Most marketing organizations actually have an affliction. We have an operating effectiveness crisis in marketing organizations in the US. Right? And it looks like the evidence suggests beyond the US. And so operating clarity, who's got the D? Right? Where does one job start and another one end? Where are the gaps? So I'll get into some of that. And the third thing I want to explain to you is you look at this, the length and the steepness of the slope on this third thing. And this is what we call marketing capability fit, which is the single biggest predictor of whether or not you're going to be a winning marketing organization. So, okay, you're telling me three things that I would, if I have those things, the likelihood I'll be a winning marketing organization goes up exponentially. So how do you get there from here? Right? And I can kind of tell you the steps, and then I'll let Nicole share kind of what this looks like when you start to do this stuff in practice. Right? So number one says you have to have a marketing value proposition. Call it a mission, call it what you like, but a statement that specifies how marketing in your organization is uniquely going to add value. Right? What marketing's job is, how it's going to, and it has to be framed in terms of how marketing is going to contribute to value, otherwise it's going to be fluffy. So marketing value proposition, you have to have it, and it has to be connected to the organizational growth outcomes. So what's your organizational growth strategy, and then what's the role of marketing in driving that? And the marketing's unique piece in driving that. And if trying to figure out how marketing delivers value is actually harder than it sounds. We're kind of going to give you a bit of a cheat sheet. I'll point out how you can get to the cheat sheet, as it were. But we've been working on this now for 7 years, and it appears that in a modern marketing organization, there are kind of 6 unique ways in which marketing can contribute to firm value. And so you can use this as kind of a framework for thinking about, and our advice is you can't deliver value on all of these 6 things simultaneously. There are very few what we would call kind of 6-stack organizations that exist. You have to make choices. Right? So we're going to double down on exchange value. We're really going to drive transactions through personalization, and that's the unique role that marketing is going to play in this organization. Or we're going to both broaden and deepen the franchise of how people think about our brand, and brand engagement is the unique thing that we're going to do in our organization. You can't do all of these things. I'm a professor, and the way we tend to frame this when we work with companies is 2 majors, 1 minor. You can have 2 majors and 1 minor, but anything more than that, and you're biting off more than you can chew, right? So how's marketing uniquely going to add value? And we can share some examples of companies who are pretty good at doing this stuff. Second piece of this is making sure that marketing value proposition is A, very clear, it's understood by others, not just by marketing, that the people inside the marketing organization believe it, and they see themselves in it, and they feel energized by it, right? That it's motivating to them. So the second thing is marketing capability fit. And again, I'll give you a little bit of a cheat sheet. And marketing capability fit says you can't be better than everyone at everything, so you have to make some choices from a capability building agenda. What is it that you're going to try and be best in class at? And you have to make choices around those things. And the question is, for the things that are most important for delivering your marketing value proposition, which is ultimately going to ladder up and deliver organizational growth, then you need to be really well developed in the things that matter most to that, and you can afford to forget about pretty much everything else. And those things can become really good candidates for outsourcing, for example, right? And so you can start with a complete list of kind of marketing capabilities. This is more of an eye chart than I've ever shown an audience of this size ever. And I'll point you to where you can get a copy of it. But the beauty of this is this lists the 72 distinct marketing capabilities that a marketing organization can drive. And depending on your choice of what pieces of this pie marketing is going to try and uniquely contribute to firm value, there are a set of capabilities associated with each of those. Right? So you don't have to worry about 72 capabilities, you just have to worry about the set that is hardwired in terms of delivering that value segment at high world class. Right? So that's what the idea of marketing capability fit, and I can show you some numbers. I can tell you for an average firm, an increase of 1% in your marketing capability fit drives almost a 2x increase in sales growth. And we've now, hot off the press, I actually haven't shown this to Greg yet, but hot off the press, we've now got enough data over a long enough time period to be able to say if you're a winning marketing organization, a 1% improvement in this marketing capability fit is more than 4x delivers in terms of sales growth. There's a synergistic effect between these three things that I'm talking about. Right? Clarity on what the marketing mission is, having marketing capability fit, and then having operating clarity on top of that. There's a synergistic effect which really turbocharges sales growth as a result of it. Right? So that's marketing capability fit, and the last piece of this is about kind of clarifying. Now you know kind of your why and you've chosen your what. This is about how you're going to do it. And operating clarity is a huge distinguisher between winning marketing organizations and not. And so shared mission, shared way of marketing actually feeds into this. But thinking about decision rights, and not at a high level associated with positions, but thinking about even down at a project level. There's a project, here's who, we're going to work on a project together, there are going to be 6 of us, who's going to be the lead? Who's got the D? Who's got the influence? And do it on a project by project. That clarity of decision rights, in particular from an operating perspective, is a huge unlock in terms of operating effectiveness. Right? And this really matters to the people inside your organization. I told you that the average number for across the industry is -2. The delta between winning marketing organizations and lagging marketing organizations is between -31 and +51. So this is something you can do something about. And operating clarity is a kind of the key unlock to this stuff. Right? So 3 things: know your why, choose your what, operating clarity. And so, you know, we have an approach to doing this, but I want to think about, you know, what does that look like in practice? And so, well, let's talk about that. So I'm going to introduce Nicole. So Nicole is going to come on, and we're going to, I'm going to get. So Nicole really did bring her team with her, right? Yeah. So Nicole, you are somewhere on this journey. You've been on this journey for a while. Give us a little bit of context. Tell us why this journey started and why you started it the way you started.
Yeah, it's great to be here with everyone, and thanks, Neil. So I'm with Kellanova, and for those that don't know, Kellanova is a brand new company. We spun from Kellogg in October of last year. So what better of a time than having a company spin to really launch you into really defining the role of marketing and what your value proposition is, so that you can not only attract but retain the best talent possible. So that really was kind of a big catalyst, I think, for us to really start to have a conversation of what is our new company going to look like and how we're going to operate as a marketing organization. So we deployed our differentiate, drive, and deliver strategy in the fall of last year as we became Kellanova. And you know, our vision is to be the world's best performing snacks-led powerhouse that really unleashes the full potential of our differentiated brands and our passionate people. And right square in the middle of this strategy is delighting our consumers. And this is really the critical mission that marketing has, and our ability to not only grow our brands, but to maintain that growth, and not only in the short but the long term as well. So we embarked on a journey, and we most recently, as we launched the company, launched our corporate culture, which is the culture of the best, which I think kind of really starts to set up the catalyst for change, and really, I think, further solidified the fact that now that we have this culture of the best, what does that really mean for our marketers and the role that they play in our organization in being the best and being a growth driver for the organization, not just a cost center. And so we embarked on a journey with MapCaps. I would say, when did we start that? In the fall of 2022, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And we did this, we knew we wanted to take a data-driven approach to really understanding where we were as an organization in our current state as Kellogg, and to really help us as leaders and cross-regional leaders to really start to define what this was going to mean for our new company, Kellanova. So we got everyone together, and we really spent some time with the MapCaps team unpacking their research and what data sets that they were seeing in the marketplace to understand what winning marketing organizations were delivering as far as their returns, their sales growth, and their net promoter scores. And that was really, I think, a great way to build the business case and the case for change in our organization, which really led us to the next steps, which was conducting our regional marketing assessment. And that was a great way for us to, across regions, tap into all levels of our marketing organization, from the global growth team to our regional centers to our local business units. And that was a survey that we sent out from the MapCaps team that went to over 200 marketers globally. From there, we really unpacked those results, not only cutting the data from a global view, but from a regional view as well. And there were a lot of things that we can talk about here, Neil, as far as what we learned and what was surprising and not surprising, and we'll go into that in a minute. But from there, we kind of jumped into conducting some global in-person sessions with our leaders to really start to craft, what would our mission start to look like? And then that really took us down to the path of co-creating what is now our vision and mission and value proposition. So I will click to the next page here. Do you want me to stop and ask questions? Okay. So to kind of unleash to the world here, our marketing mission that we landed on as an organization is to build iconic brands that ignite consumer delight through winning food and relevant experiences, driving growth and value for Kellanova. And I heard, Neil, you were talking earlier about having something that was simple, that people could repeat, that people could know and understand, and to have sort of a rallying cry internally. And so this mission, I think, delivers on all of those. But I think behind every one of the words on this page are the double clicks behind that, which is our value proposition. I won't read through all of these because I know we want to actually have a discussion around kind of some of the insights that we unpacked here. But through the mission work and getting to the value proposition really helped us to drive a lot of clarity around what is the work of marketing, why does marketing exist in this company, and what are the growth levers that we have to pull, and then how are we going to build capability behind that to enable that mission and these value propositions. So that's kind of where we've been on our journey and where we are now. So I'll kick it back over to you.
Yeah, well, so I was going to, do you want to click back a couple of slides?
Yeah.
Where you are on the journey piece. So one of the things that we hear a lot, and actually Kellanova was Kellogg's at the time, was a different animal in the sense that they were really open to and really wanted data. It's like, we got some really important decisions to make, and the marketing org is that important. This really needs to be data-based. And one of the things that we hear very often at MapCaps is we already know what we need to know. Tell us what you didn't know. When you got the data, what was it that surprised you?
I think the biggest surprise was we kind of knew that our marketing net promoter score was probably going to be on par with CPG. But I think, as I just showed you about our culture of the best, we don't want to just be on par with CPG. We want to be the best. We want to be a winning marketing organization. And when we started to cut the data, I think some of the big ahas that we had was that even amongst and across regions, there was no consistency in the value that marketing was delivering to the business. There were pockets of things that were consistent, but really we were more different than we were kind of the same. But once we started to really unpack that data, and it really opened the door for a lot of dialogue and discussion around, gosh, are we really focusing on the right things that are really going to unlock marketing as a growth driver? Or are we just doing a bunch of things that kind of don't ladder up to that real big leapfrogging or that incremental opportunity that we knew that marketing can deliver for the organization?
So what's interesting, looking at this across organizations is lots of companies want to do this stuff. Most of them think they know what they need to do, and very few of them, it turns out, actually do. And what happens is that you spend an awful lot of time arguing about people's opinions inside the organization about what the real source of the problems are and which solutions you should go after. And everybody has a point of view. And that results in both churn, it takes time, but it also results in you come up with kind of vanilla, what's the lowest common denominator that will keep everybody kind of happy, right? And I think from your perspective, when we did the MRA, we called it is the kind of the data collection approach here. One of the things I remember a lot when we were doing readouts in the regions and with the different brand groups and stuff, there was a lot of discussion and a lot of debate, but it was not about what the facts were. Mm-hmm. It was about what do we do about that? Mm-hmm. And you're able to put it in front of people, and now all of a sudden you're making data-informed decisions. It doesn't tell you what to do, but you're making data-informed decisions, and you're able to do it an awful lot quicker. And I remember, and you may not want to talk about this, but I remember when we presented out across all of the regions, and then the question of, well, what's the role of the center? Mm-hmm. You remember those conversations?
Yep. So Kellanova and Kellogg even we're still a very decentralized organization. So I sit in our global growth team, and the role of the center is really to be a strategic thought leader and to be thinking about the next 3 to 5 years out. Whereas the regions are kind of, delivering the today, and our local markets are delivering like right now. But even from a capability building perspective, there wasn't a clear kind of definition of where all the capability building should be done. And at what pace, and then at what maturity, because when you have 4 different regions, they all have varying degrees of brand maturity, capability, and even just market penetration as well. And so based upon that matrix alone, everyone felt that my region is so different than the other one. But when we actually started to open up and have dialogue and discussion, it became really clear that we were actually a lot closer together than we thought that we were. But it was kind of at that point in time that I think the plane was kind of landed, that yes, it makes sense for us to have one global mission and one value proposition. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to create the consistency, the standardization in our processes, our ways of working, and also how 1 + 1 can equal 4 in capability building and scale, so that you can truly capitalize on that growth opportunity that you would miss if you were kind of doing it all as 4 separate regions trying to deliver the same thing.
So can you just walk through the kinds of decisions that you've made now as a result of having the kind of the data?
Yeah, so I would say that beyond just kind of the mission and the value proposition, we've also moved and made significant advances in our overall digital transformation journey. So through this process, we've aligned as an organization that we will kind of go together to co-create and define our transformation strategies as it relates to data and technology, our measurement approaches, the ad tech and martech that we need, how we build capability and advanced analytics, and then how we really drive operational excellence as well. And so through a working model that we developed, in which we have a global steering committee that is kind of the governing body of our cross-regional network that we've kind of created out of this. And then we have an operating council that is kind of pushed up against each of these big work streams that are really helping us to define the capabilities, how fast we want to go, how we're going to resource those and pay for those capabilities, and then what is the role of the center in operating those versus the region or the local market. And then we have specific working groups that are also pushed up against these different work streams that are made up of subject matter experts that are really helping us to kind of create those exact strategies. So we've created this great structure that even in a decentralized organization, we were able to build a lot of co-creation, which I think also has been really successful for us because every leader has now been brought along on the journey and has had a voice and a seat at the table so that they can rally behind it and they feel that they have skin in the game. Because I think accountability and responsibility is also a big piece of this puzzle that has to be tackled, because if everyone's a decision maker and everyone's a leader, then nothing gets done. And so through this, we've been able to go faster together, which I think has been a great testament to the journey that we've been on here.
So it was from an outside perspective, it was really interesting at the beginning, the degree of frustration a whole bunch of people were feeling. And today, there's a feeling of real energy and movement, and that we pushed some of the big rocks up the hill, and now we know what kind of needs to come next. And there's it's almost a palpable sense of that inside the organization. And so you go back to, we started with an NPS, which was kind of, not terrible, but it was on the par with a CPG. And I'd be willing to put large sums of money that when we do this again at the end of the year, that we're going to see a significant improvement in that. So you've got a bunch of folks in the audience who maybe somewhere on this journey or thinking about a need to get on this journey. What kind of advice would you give them, knowing what you now know?
Yeah. I think absolutely, a data-driven approach is a really smart way to go about this. It really removes a lot of the subjectivity and the emotion, I think, behind having conversations like this. And so I think taking the time up front to really unpack the opportunity and what does a winning marketing organization look like, and the data points behind that helps to get people rallied, around going through a body of work like this. I think secondarily, if I was to do it over again, I think it would be to have a really baked communication plan for multiple layers of the organization as you're going through this exercise, because people get a million surveys from different groups across the org every day. And so how do you prioritize the importance of the one that you're sending? And then what are we going to do with that information is also really important, because you want people to feel like they're being heard and that you're truly designing solutions that are going to help them to not only be more confident in the job that they have, but also that we're attracting and retaining our talent, and that people feel that they're valued in our organization, and that the choices that they're making on our business every day are truly laddering up to something bigger, which I think has been a really big unlock.
Cool. So we're about out of time, but I want to finish with, I promised you one thing, I'm going to give you two. So the one thing is, from a measurement perspective, we're about to launch a new, what we would call a light diagnostic version of the measurement tool that Nicole and Kellanova have used. And I put here for the first 3 possible attendees, just to send an email to Shubu, we'll give you one of those for free, but Nicole bagged one. So there are only 2 left, so, but feel free to share an email, and we'll work with you. And thank you for listening, and I'm put up here a copy of the Harvard Business Review paper, all of those eye charts that I showed you, the marketing value areas and the 72 marketing capabilities, you can get there. If you can't access that, then just send us an email and we will be happy to send you a copy. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Cool.